Some are driven off the belt and some are driven off the motor.
Okay, next question.
Okay, what do the valves do?
Okay, a valve,
How many valves are there? Is there one?
it depends
Multiple?
on the system. Every system is different, but the valving is only to stop the fluid from traveling back into the low pressure side of the reservoir. Reservoir is always low pressure. The pump creates pressure as it churns, so that you have a high pressure side and you have a low pressure side. High pressure goes to the pump. The low pressure comes from, back that up.
Okay.
High pressure goes to the cylinder, is what they're
Yes.
calling it. A cylinder is not. It's actually called a rack and pinion
Okay.
or a steering box,
Rack
one of the
and
two.
pinion.
Goes from there and it comes back as low pressure, goes back into the reservoir. It's a constant cycle of fluid. Has to be a constant cycle of fluid.
Okay.
The valving stops the reverse flow of rotation with this fluid. That's what the valve stops. It's basically considered a one-way valve. Fluid can only go one way. Pressure can only go one way. It has to go one direction only. It cannot go both directions.
Okay.
Okay, so you have a reservoir. Reservoir has to be up high because it holds fluid and so that you can actually test
Access it.
fluid and see where your fluid levels are.
Yeah.
Fluid has to be full in the whole system. There cannot be any air bubbles that will not work. All hydraulic systems have to be full fluid, no air. If there's any air, they do not work. Okay, so you have to bleed them as they are installed to get all the air out. That's why the reservoir is on the highest surface, so that all the air can escape through the top. Okay?
Okay.
So you have a reservoir connected to your pump. Somehow, some way, sometimes they're engulfed in the pump. Sometimes they're just on top of it like it is in this situation here.
Yes.
The pump is driven by a belt in this situation. Sometimes the pump is driven by an electric pump.
Okay.
In electric cars, sometimes, like I said, the motor turns off. So they can't have it connected to it that way. It has to be connected via an electric pump.
Okay.
So it's basically just an electric pump connected right to the hydraulic pump that churns the fluid, that moves the fluid through the system. It's all one piece. So this all has to work in conjunction with the rack and pinion, or with the steering box, one of the two. Now all cars nowadays are all pretty much rack and pinion. Rack and pinion does not use a cylinder per se. A cylinder is only going to be used with constant fluid. So like on a forklift or on a heavy equipment is used with cylinders, where they actually steer the wheels with a hydraulic cylinder. Because the pressure is entered from one side, pushes it one way, and then it moves back. The valving moves it to go back the other way. So it's a bidirectional system. Cars do not work that way. Automobiles are only assist. They only have hydraulic assist, so that if you lose power, you can still steer your vehicle. So they just assist by making the steering easier by fluid moving through the cylinder per se that has gears in it, basically, where it churns with the steering of the steering wheel. So you have a steering shaft that goes into the rack and pinion, which is basically like a cylinder turned sideways, and there's fluid going through it, pressurized. So as you steer that gear, it moves freely with the oil pressure helping it, assisting it, basically. All those systems that have different geometry of pressure and volume through this side of the pump have to accept the same pressure and volume on the other side, if that matters.
Okay.